Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Week 14 edition of A Good Football Show, Fantasy Kickoff, served by Applebee's. I can't say the word edition today, apparently. I am Patrick Daugherty, joined as always by John Daigle, Kyle Dvorchak, and Denny Carter. We're going to dig into all your lineup questions for what is now the final week of the fantasy regular season. It used to be the first week of the fantasy playoffs. We still have 4 teams on bye this Week 14. A lot of really sad injury news, none sadder than Elijah Moore being on injured reserve. I think that broke Denny on Saturday. I am also broken. He was beginning to carry several of my teams. We got a lot of interesting situations today. Kyle, in the Dallas-Washington football team game, both teams are missing their third down backs. J.D. McKissic out for Washington. Tony Pollard out for the Cowboys. What does this do for Antonio Gibson? Top 5, top 6? And is this what Zeke needs to get back in the top 12?
Yeah, I feel like for Zeke, volume has been propelling him all year because efficiently certainly hasn't been. And this does open up the potential for more volume, although I don't think it's fair to say he will just consume all of Tony Pollard's role. I think Tony Pollard's role was in part created because he is good enough to earn a specific role. So I think it boosts his volume and does put him inside the top 12. That's where I'll have him ranked. Actually, I have to make sure I have that adjusted now. But I think it puts him in the top 12, but you still are so capped by the fact that he has been dreadfully inefficient over the previous 5-6 weeks. Even before that, it's not like he was balling out. He just wasn't among the league bottom and stuff like, missed tackles forced per touch or something. So it's good for him, no doubt. But does it consume all of Pollard's role and just make him instantly a top 5 back again? That feels a bit optimistic. I would still rank him in that 10, 11, 12 range. And Gibson, even though his team is obviously worse, he's just so much more talented, or at least more efficient at this point in his career, that I think it's fair to say he is probably closing in on top 5. Maybe he's just outside of that. But if you said you had him top 5, I wouldn't blame you. He's just been absolutely dominant in terms of overall usage, and specifically what we wanted to see was the routes and the targets. He's finally doing that, obviously, with McKissic out, but they don't use Wendell Smallwood. He got like 2 or 3 routes last week, so they only use Antonio Gibson finally. It just took their veteran pass catcher, who's fine but not great, getting injured to unleash a literal college wide receiver as a pass catcher out of the backfield. So yeah, it's great for Gibson. It's good for Ezekiel Elliott.
Antonio Gibson getting his shin back has been quite the 2021 fantasy season development since the football team's Week 9 bye. Denny, I feel like you can say this every week, actually, about the 49ers backfield. I was about to say a lot going on in this 49ers backfield. I guess there's never not a lot going on in this 49ers backfield, but the recent bell cow, Elijah Mitchell out for Week 14. Deebo Samuel, the wide receiver, change of pace running back, is back in the lineup after missing 1 game. He only got in 1 limited practice this week, but is it safe to go back to Deebo as a wide receiver 1? And we got a lot of Jeff Wilson questions this week. Right. What do you think about Jeff Wilson?
Yeah, so I think Deebo and Wilson being good to go for today against the Bengals kind of puts Jermichael Hasty on ice. I picked him up in a couple leagues. I don't see any path to any sort of volume for him. Remember last time Mitchell was out for the Niners, Jeff Wilson led the team with 19 rushing attempts, but Deebo chipped in with 8 rushing attempts for 79 yards and a touchdown in his dominant utility guy role in that Niners offense. So I think we could see, similar usage today if he is fully healthy, if he gets a full complement of snaps. I guess that's the question. I doubt that they would push such an important part. He is the most important player on the 49ers team, period. So you would think that they would not play him unless he could play something close to a full game. I think you can confidently put him in as a lower end wide receiver 1 in this situation.
You would assume. I do also wonder, if Kyle Shanahan has realized that maybe these players who all of a sudden he's given monstrous workloads they were never projected for, keep getting hurt instantly, Elijah Mitchell and Deebo Samuel. I do wonder if maybe he'll find religion on that with Deebo, but I'm with you. I kind of doubt it. I mean, they're playing for their season. I don't think he'd be active if they didn't think he was close to his normal role. And I consider Deebo Samuel the change of pace back today. And I also totally agree. He's put Jermichael Hasty on ice. As we said, that Jermichael Hasty will have 2 touches, both of which are somehow one-yard touchdowns.
Right. Well, we've locked in the 85-yard screen pass touchdown. Thank you.
Daigle, Julio Jones, he's active for the first time since Week 9. The hamstring is anytime he's taken the field this year, basically, he's aggravated his hamstring injury. How can fantasy managers trust him for the final week of the regular season? How high do you have him in the rankings?
You can't trust him for the final week of fantasy season. You can play him, but trust is not the word we are using at all. Even when healthy this year, the wide receiver 75 in fantasy points per game. I think he lacks the Julio eruption spots, the Julio volcano spots we used to see from him, but it is a picture perfect matchup in a situation if you need him. It's bad enough that it's week 14 and like Jonathan Taylor and some of our best players are on bye somehow when we're trying to scrap and make it to the fantasy playoffs.
Not the Joker.
Nonetheless, I think Julio's more of a wide receiver 4 with upside and a lot of risk as opposed to the automatic put him in and he turns back the clock to 2018, 2017 Julio.
So we could withstand, the Jonathan Taylor bye week in week 14, whatever. It's the craziest, dumbest thing ever. What we couldn't withstand was Elijah Moore joining him on the sidelines. So that is what has broken.
That one hurt too.
That is what has broken some of the people on the show. And I think I might try to make myself cry on command right now again.
That's your lifelong goal, isn't it?
It is my goal. I need to cry on command about Elijah Mitchell being on IR. It is quite a bummer. And yeah, Daigle, the only thing I'll add on Julio is that when I did the initial ranks this week, Julio is going to be, I'm going to hedge this guy. Can't get him at all, like the top 36. And it was pretty easy to get him in the top 36 because of how dire a receiver is right now. But I agree with you. Trust is not the word. Hope is the word. And Matthew Netburn, that's probably not how he pronounces his last name. Maybe it is. I don't know how else you'd pronounce that.
How else would you? What are your ideas on how else you pronounce that?
This Netburn would be kind of strange, I feel like. But yeah, there's no real way.
Pronouncing a Netburn would be way more strange.
Yeah, there's no a pronunciation out of that one. So Matthew, hello. He's joining us on YouTube. Kyle Dvorchak, Saquon Barkley, or Terry McLaurin as a flex and half PPR. This is actually a pretty interesting question.
I am going to go with Saquon Barkley. I know Saquon hasn't really been, let's call it good since coming back. But the thing is, he is still, since I believe he's played 3 games now since returning. He didn't even play the full complement of snaps in that first game back as well. He is still, over the past 3 weeks, he is second in running back targets and running back target share. And he is 4th in receiving expected fantasy points in PPR leagues. He is, at a minimum, one of the most used and better fantasy pass catchers as far as running backs go, and he still has the ability to hit home runs. Does he do it as often as we'd like, given how often he gets taken down for -1, -2, -4 yards? No, but he gives you already, I would think, a locked-in RB2 floor simply based on, even in half PPR, simply based on the receiving production, and he's still probably talented as a runner. He's not completely dead, even if the injuries maybe have taken him to 80% of himself, 70, 60, that's still fine because we can guarantee, at a minimum, he's what, Jamal Williams out this week, but he's that sort of Jamal Williams, catches some passes, that's enough to give you a floor, and he's still probably Saquon Barkley. He's probably not completely gone. So I'm going Saquon. I have a decent amount of Saquon in DFS, and any place I have him, I didn't really have much of him, but if any place I have him in season long, I am starting him.
Kyle, this was a test to see if you would recommend starting a New York Giant, and you did.
Did I pass then?
Yeah, you failed. But,
that's the fail criteria. I figured. I
have him as the RB15. Denny Daniel joins us every week. Chase Edmonds or Jerry Jeudy. This is probably pretty easy, unfortunately, because Chase Edmonds is starting to sound like he's out. I do believe we'll find out this afternoon, at least, if he's activated from injured reserve, but it's seeming I had a lot of really tough decisions, Chase Edmonds, where I'm doing things like starting Austin Walter instead, and hating life because of it. But I feel like that's probably what Daniel needs to do, correct?
Yeah, I don't think that you can bank on Edmonds being active. And honestly, even if he is active, what's to say that he is an emergency back behind James Conner, just like we saw someone last week. Darrell Henderson with the Rams. So I think that just plug in Jeudy. Jeudy's in a great spot.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, right. But you know what? You're liking Jeudy more than you're liking Cortland Sutton. That's what I can say about Jeudy.
That's true. And you made an important point on Chase Edmonds, where even once he is healthy and officially back, I'm not sure if we should expect the 1A, 1B it was earlier this season, where he might be more of a true change of pace, breather back. Not someone who's only going to get 2 to 3 touches or whatever, but maybe more 6 to 8 instead of the 10 to 12 that he was counting on before. I think his workload might be dialed back a little bit. John, you go.
There's no one whose absence has made the heart grow fonder than Chase Edmonds. Like, we forget he was literally just a reception floor guy who inside the 20s was lava, and James Conner instead got put in for touchdowns. Like, that's what Chase Edmonds was. He was never an RB1. So it just emphasizes how many injuries we're going through, how much we need these like floor players to come back. Having said that, like, literally 15 minutes ago on ESPN, Adam Schefter said he expects Edmonds to be activated. So
Really?
Now if you want to go back to the Edmonds or Austin Walter question, be my guest.
Well, yeah,
I can't help you out there.
I need one of you to talk for about 2.5 minutes while I go and check out some stuff here.
Pat,
Yeah.
to clarify, I don't know why this is, but I believe I do know this to be a fact. Monday players who play on Monday night can be activated on Monday, as opposed to the Sunday players who have to be activated on Saturday, I believe. For whatever reason, you're allowed to make your transaction on the day of Monday. So we actually won't know, although it sounds like Schefter has sort of, put this to rest.
Yeah.
But we won't know actually until Jeudy has locked, for sure. At least they won't make the official
That's
transaction.
true. I read somewhere that it could be today, but you were right. It actually is tomorrow. It is Monday for the Monday night players. So that is an important clarification. So yeah, good luck.
Good luck. Have fun.
Yeah. Daigle, Island Boy Gamers. He's a very loyal viewer. He needs 2 quick ones in PPR. Van Jefferson or Marquez Valdes-Scantling, pretty much closer than we would have assumed like a month ago, probably. Or Devontae Freeman or Urban Meyer's boy, James Robinson.
Both awesome plays. I think I still lean Valdes-Scantling. It is a tough matchup for the Rams against a stout Cardinals secondary, allowing the second fewest fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers. Also, it was very encouraging that Valdes-Scantling, even with Lazard back before the Packers bye, still to get 9 targets and carry that 19-yard depth of target with 9 targets. That's encouraging. We want our deep players to have mass volume as well. And so I do think Valdes-Scantling is closer to a strong wide receiver 3 than like a risky boomer bust guy that everyone perceives he is right now, because he's the clear-cut number 2 receiver. So I just think it's the easier matchup and the better spot, whereas Van Jefferson could go off, but also it could be Beckham. Like, it's hard to pick between those two. They are neck and neck in the rankings every single week for the rest of the year. So I will go MVS, and then I'll also go James Robinson. Seems like they are now giving him every Thursday off to handle the workload. It is a better spot, but remember, like, he was benched. Everyone said for injury. It wasn't really for injury, though. He was held out for 3 straight possessions because he fumbled. And so had he not fumbled, maybe it happens again, but had he not fumbled, he would have at least been on the field for significantly more touches. Carlos Hyde, when he ran in that 1-yard touchdown, was the time when Robinson was on the bench. And so I'll just take Robinson over Freeman.
Yeah, now we're having an inquest into who ordered that code red. Urban Meyer first pinned it on his running backs coach, and it seems like the running backs coach has been blowing the whistle that it was, in fact, not him. Check out Tom Pelissero's article over at NFL Network yesterday on the dysfunction with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Urban Meyer, it doesn't sound like he's endearing himself to the team. All I can really say there. Denny, I see tight ends. I think Denny. I see Austin Hooper. I mean, weren't you like requesting pictures of Austin Hooper in the CMS and stuff this week? Greg McDonald needs to know Zach Ertz or Austin Hooper in half PPR.
Yeah, this is tough. So Hooper is a volume-based play because Harrison Bryant is out for Cleveland and David Njoku is out with COVID. That leaves Hooper to absorb, I guess, many of their routes and their targets. Last time the Browns played the Ravens, which was like 15 minutes ago, like 2 weeks ago, the Cleveland tight ends combined for 14 targets. No team targets the tight end more than the Browns. I could list 15 stats, and I just did in favor of Austin Hooper. Saying that, I'm going with Zach Ertz here.
No courage of your convictions there. But Zach Ertz, I think, is the correct play. And Austin Hooper, I'm feeling pretty desperate in a lot of leagues this week, and there's a lot of leagues where I would have killed for Austin Hooper to be available.
I did actually. I'm in legal trouble.
Well, Denny, we hope the FBI does not arrive at your house before the show is finished, so you can
let's just get this over with.
Giving people their start sits. Lindorfin joins us every week. Kyle, please help choose a flex and standard with Terry McLaurin, Mr. Every Question this week, Jeff Wilson, or Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
If it's standard, we just go CH because the volume is probably similar between him and Jeff Wilson, but the touchdown equity is probably a lot higher, just given that his team should put up a lot more points. And given how run heavy Antonio Gibson and the Washington football team have been, it feels like Terry McLaurin in a standard league specifically, it's kind of tough to really bite on that. So I'll take CH.
See, I will. Jeff Wilson, he just, man, he like, when I think of like in my head, like scam RB2s that are just bad and will score a touchdown, Jeff Wilson is like he's like the poster boy. But I
don't know.
I know.
CH, given how much better Daryl looks, also feels scam RB2 with a decent touchdown probability.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think you laid the situation out well. I mean, again, everyone on the planet this week is wondering about Jeff Wilson, Daigle. Let's maybe try to establish some Jeff Wilson lines here. Adam Klugman on YouTube, he's nervous about Jeff Wilson. Jamison Crowder in PPR is probably looking. If you want to talk about PPR scams, Jamison Crowder, 8 to 9 catches is like very realistic this week without Elijah Moore. What should Adam do in his PPR league?
I don't know why everyone's scared of Jeff Wilson. Like, we know what Jeff Wilson is. Barring re-injury,
3.7 YPC.
He's going to get 20 carries, and you need a hope for a touchdown. He's not going to get a target with Michael Hasty healthy. Like, that's what Jeff Wilson is. It's very easy to know his role. There's nothing that's going to surprise you from him. So I will still take Jeff Wilson, hoping the touchdown. Yes, Corey Davis out, Elijah Moore out, Keelan Cole back. So perhaps Jamison Crowder does have the higher PPR floor. That matchup, the Jets offense, still significantly worries me, though. I understand if you want the catches for the floor, but I'd rather have the Jeff Wilson 20 carries.
There are so many Jeff Wilson. And like Friday in my chat, I think like Jeff Wilson was in the chat. He's like, would you start me? Like, I mean, I'm a little too close to the situation. Like, I want to trust Kyle Shanahan, but I need an outside perspective. And I told him, that I probably would.
You gotta do it.
Real quick, I'm going to try to stop answering so many Jeff Wilson questions, but Denny, one more here. Let's get the Jeff Wilson or Jerry Jeudy, who someone I think earlier claimed would score fantasy points for me this week, actually.
I did claim that, and I meant it. And we have proof that it can happen against a terrible Detroit secondary. Of course, the Broncos could go skew run heavy here, and just hammer the Lions with their running back duo. But yeah, I feel slightly better about. Oh God,
you gotta take the RB touches, Denny. You gotta.
I'll go with the secured touches. But one thing that worries me about everybody in the Niners offense, honestly, is that over the past 4 weeks, no team has been a more extreme pass funnel than the Bengals. Like, teams are not really running it on them. I mean, that has to do with game script a little bit here and there, but I'm not sure if the Niners can like go full Shanahan here and run it 50 times. So that could be an issue. But yeah, I guess you're going Wilson here.
That actually is a good point, that even Shanahan, like, things could go really haywire in this game, which this game could go like one of two ways. This is like the ultimate, like, this game's either going to shoot out, or like the under is going to be like locked in by like the 1 minute mark of the first quarter. Like, both teams are just dysfunctional after lots of injury issues this week, but I think you laid it out correct there. Savulu, who about Daigle? He wants to know Jamison. You've already talked about a few of these guys, but Jamison Crowder, MVS, like the premier PPR scam, Russell Gage or Emmanuel Sanders. Are we still rostering Emmanuel Sanders even in 12-team leagues?
No, we are not worrying about Emmanuel Sanders at all. As of 6 weeks ago, I would take MVS over Russell Gage. That's how I'd rank them, with Crowder, and then I'm not going to answer Sanders. So MVS, Gage, Crowder. Gage, of course, at least 7 targets in 5 of his last 6 games, 4 of his last 5 without Calvin Ridley, whatever the stretch is. Everything runs together now in week 14. But we are taking the MVS ceiling role over Gage. Crowder, again, just a floor play. I don't think in that offense, in this matchup, he has a ceiling at all. We're not too worried about it.
Rank the scams, Russell Gage or Jamison Crowder. Who is more likely to have 5 empty PPR catches?
I mean, Gage has been good. I mean, Gage has been good after that 1 3-target, 0-catch game. He's been a great PPR play, honestly.
No, he's been a great receiver. It's important that people acknowledge that this is a scam, okay?
Meanwhile,
he's not a good player.
Kyle Pitts. The scam is Kyle Pitts, who has 1 red zone target over the last 5 games without Calvin Ridley. They're not even using him. That's the scam.
This is getting too real. It's got way too real. And who always keeps it real, folks, is Lawrence Jackson. And he's here to talk about streamer defenses in week 14 as you fight for a playoff spot in the final week of the fantasy regular season.
Whole lot of offensive firepower, whole lot of fantasy points in a Thursday night game between the Steelers and them Vikings. But they're the last week of the fantasy regular season, and we need defense too now. So let's talk about a couple of streaming defenses you should be firing up. Tennessee Titans at home versus the Jags. It may be the second worst defense over the past 4 weeks. But they face a Jags offense who tied for the third fewest touchdowns scored. And the Titans 9-point favorites. Fire them up. The offense with the least amount of touchdowns scored in 2021 is them Texans. And they are facing the Seahawks, albeit without Jamal Adams. Still get them in there if you need them. Seahawks defense. Then you got them Saints marching in the MetLife Stadium to face them. Just get that defense in your lineups if you could get them. If you're really hurting for a defense now, check out that Falcons and Panthers game. That should be a low-scoring game with an over-under 41.5. Both offenses are prone to turnovers. So if you really need a defense, go get one of them. Be wary of the Bucks and the Bills.
I wonder if no Jamal Adams is actually a good thing for the Seahawks defense at this point. Too soon. That'll blow. Yeah, and I tried to run to get a Christmas tree that I have in my hallway to put in my shot, and then I couldn't find the plug. So,
by the way, we have a late breaking news here that Urban Meyer has confirmed to Jay Glazer that he did call his assistant coaches losers. I'm not kidding. It's not a joke. This is not.
I saw that too.
Not a bit. So adjust the ranks, I guess.
Yeah, there's one thing I know about NFL coaches and players is they love to be treated like children.
They do.
So Urban Meyer, he's just killing it down there.
Denny,
what
we wouldn't give for an Urban Meyer Hard Knocks, it would just be such good content.
Would be, except for it'd be a lot of preening. Like he'd be like the ultimate, like sitting on a golf cart with his feet on the steering wheel, like lots of pointing, and always wearing like those really like shades that have like no frame basically whatsoever.
Like, who are you? I'm James Robinson. I don't.
I'm Trevor Lawrence. I mean, you made me the #1 pick in the draft.
Urban's not actually at practice, so you can tell that they had to shoot like B-roll shots of him some other time because it's like the wrong background or the wrong time of day interjected into the normal shots.
See, why is this in a parking lot of a B-dubs? But as I say on a good football show, Fantasy Kickoff served by Applebee's. But Urban Meyer, he wouldn't be at Applebee's. He'd be like he'd be somewhere just very not good.
Belichick goes to Applebee's. Andy Reid goes to Applebee's. Or Urban goes to B-dubs, frankly.
Denny, Richard on YouTube. He needs a quarterback streamer. Derek Carr, who the streaming floor has kind of fallen out a bit lately. Yeah. Ryan Tannehill, who's got a good matchup and is actually getting back a wide receiver today. Or Taylor Heineke, the same thing as Carr. Like his team's gone more run heavy. I feel like he's gotten a little less reliable as a streamer.
Yes. So it's between Tannehill and Heineke for me. I don't think Carr against a vastly improved Kansas City defense at home. I don't like that spot at all. I don't think Washington's going to be able to do its regular thing today. They have so many defensive injuries, so banged up. I think the Cowboys are going to get out to a lead. I think that they're not going to meet much resistance in this game, which means that Heineke and the offense will have to throw more than they usually do and maybe speed up the offense, which has been very slow of late. So I'm going with Heineke. And honestly, the fact that he takes off so often out of the pocket, he had 25 rushing attempts over a 4-game span recently. So I like Heineke here.
This is the first week that DeMarcus Lawrence, Randy Gregory, and Micah Parsons will all be available. It's sort of a scary matchup, honestly, for Washington.
Sounds like a week where the Cowboys have a letdown for no reason then.
Yep.
Daigle Alfred Marks on YouTube is wondering, Daryl or the Lions running backs, let's use this as an opportunity to lay out what we might think is going on in the Lions backfield without DeAndre Swift and without Jamal Williams.
I would actually take Daryl over the Lions running backs. ESPN or Adam Schefter on ESPN Fantasy Now, before the show actually mentioned that he was starting Craig Reynolds, which tells us he knows something, that they're actually going to use 3 backs today, which is extremely worrisome. Also, given the low team total, given the horrific spot with no pass catchers, T.J. Hawkinson included, no DeAndre Swift, in altitude on the road against the Broncos, who are 3-score favorites in this situation, 2-score favorites, double-digit points. Overall, it's just a nasty offense that you just don't want a part of. Like all these questions, Brock Wright or James O'Shaughnessy, Igwebuike or Darrell Williams, like just don't take the Lions offense. It's that simple. Sometimes the best answer is not an answer at all. Like you just ignore it. So Darrell Williams.
Yeah, so that's the best. Just delete your team if you're starting Austin Walter, like I am in several spots. Kyle,
the Chiefs running backs. Remember, that's who has become the Chiefs' third receiver. Patrick Mahomes, since week 8, ever since they were just onslaughted by the Titans, they've changed up their offensive game plan completely, and now their running backs are averaging 7.5 targets per game, the 17th highest running back target rate in the entire league. Just last week, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Darrell Williams led the team in receiving yards. They've become a awful, unwatchable team to become a better winning team.
Yep, you hate to see it. Kyle, Chuck, who joins us every week on Twitch. We haven't talked a lot about the Titans back. We did talk about this on the show, actually. We had you and I had a slightly different take, actually, in the Titans backfield. Dontrell Hilliard or Darrell Williams. I think I'm going to agree with the answer here, but lay out the Titans backfield because I feel like Jeremy McNichols coming back. I don't know if he's going to come back to an actual role. I think you disagreed with that. Lay out what you think is going to happen in the Titans backfield.
Yeah, the part we agreed upon for sure was that Deonta Foreman has a very clear between the tackles banger type of role that isn't really affected by the loss or addition of Jeremy McNichols. I believe given how much McNichols was used early in the season, I mean, he was playing 30% of the snaps when they had Derrick Henry, actual real life Derrick Henry, superhero, active and healthy. They were still using Jeremy McNichols, even had a 12 target game when they had none of their receivers. I think his usage early in the season is enough for me to say that one big Dontrell Hilliard game is not enough to keep Dontrell Hilliard in that role. Maybe they split the role. Maybe Hilliard has earned some of the sort of third down, change of pace back stuff. But we both agree it sounds like that it's not, the risk is too high, that you're basically playing Dontrell Hilliard to get a Darrell Williams level of touches, but that's the upside, right? The floor is that he is just completely phased out from McNichols. So I'm not sure why you would take the risk. I don't think you're gaining much by playing him. So I would take Williams.
Yeah, I think Darrell Williams is kind of the no-brainer call here. Denny, we're going to have a lot of Sony Michel panic. Well, not panic. People just wondering how high to get Sony Michel. Are we getting Sony Michel in over Ezekiel Elliott this week?
No. I'm sorry. I was distracted by a kicker question in the chat, and I was my mind was focused on that, and I want to address that in a second. I'm going Elliott just based on Pollard being limited or out, and Elliott getting all the touches, including the receptions, which obviously is important. So, but Sony's a great play as well. I would lean Elliott. I hate it, but I would.
Yeah, Pollard is out. Ezekiel Elliott is in your lineup,
Sorry.
even with Sony Michel.
Yeah.
Daigle, let's try to establish his line, though. Sony Michel or T. Higgins in PPR. I mean, I feel like I know the answer, but what's your take on this?
I would go, it's very close. I think I'd still take Michel. I think Michel's pretty close to Zeke, to be honest, knowing that, we just saw what Sony Michel does. And again, he's going to get every single touch. Mekhi Sargent may relieve him for 2 carries or so. But the fact that even last week, the Jaguars stacked their box with 8+ defenders on half his carries, as we talked about on the recap show, and Michel still had 54 yards against stacked boxes. He's explosive. He looks great in this offense. So, yeah, I take Sony Michel over T. Higgins. Now, Higgins probably has a higher ceiling. You got to hope for a little bit of a little bit of pace, some efficiency in that game, since the 49ers play the fewest combined snaps in every single game in the league. But Higgins does have the higher ceiling. I'm taking Michel.
Yeah, I think that's how you lay it out. You got to do the higher ceiling with Higgins, and then Higgins is the higher ceiling, but Michel, he's the safer play, by far the higher floor. Real quick, then this is probably pretty easy, Kyle. But Sony Michel or Deebo Samuel in PPR. Yeah, unless we have some residual Deebo injury concerns, I feel like this probably has to be Deebo.
I think so. I feel like we've seen the Sony Michel role. It's on an offense that is really good. He was really close to absolutely obliterating this. It was end of the game. They just needed a touchdown to sold it away. And I think it ended up being a passing touchdown. It could have been massive for Sony Michel. I'm a little more up in the air on it. You know what? I'll go Sony Michel. I think Sony Michel as the 3-down back for an explosive offense is that's enough for me to play Michel versus Deebo coming back with possible injury concerns. And I don't think it's a good thing that they don't have all their running backs, because I just can't project him to score on a fifth of his carries and average 10 yards per carry. So I think the more he gets in work as an actual running back, as opposed to designed sort of wide receiver trick plays, if you want to call him that, it's probably not a good thing for him necessarily. So I actually go Sony here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating one. It's a really because Debo, he could be like the classic X factor today for like the slate.
Oh, he could break the slate for sure.
He could break the slate. He's a redraft X factor, so it's a really fascinating situation. Daigle, what are the fascinating situations in DFS this week?
It's pretty a clear-cut week, to be honest. You know who everyone's going to roster. You know everyone is infatuated with Antonio Gibson without J.D. McKissic. You know everyone is hovering around the most polarizing game of the week, the Bucs-Bills, although I do still have my issues with that game, which is why I think it's somewhat worth fading, to be honest, but since Josh Allen has been horrific against the blitz, 59% completion rate, 6.5 yards per attempt, and we know Todd Bowles in the Bucs defense has called the second highest blitz rate in the league. So I do think there's a lot of risk of ruin, like a lot of failure that could be baked into that game overall. Brady also pretty bad in his last 3 or 4 games. Yes, did spike a ceiling game with 4 touchdowns against the Falcons, as he's done, averaging 375 yards against the Falcons the past 4 games. But before that, didn't have more than 2 touchdowns in 3 games prior. So actually a game that I don't mind fading. I think some sneaky spots are getting on the Cowboys passing attack. Seems like all are coming in under rostered, even though we know, barring, like you said, Pat, a surprising letdown, how explosive they can be. Also, to be this healthy finally, Amari Cooper reportedly over all COVID protocols, limited to a season low in snap rate last week. Now we expect him to be back at full health and on the field for every single snap. So you pretty much know where the ball is going to go. Even if you want to get sneaky and play Elliott, I understand he hasn't been explosive. He had a stretch there of 6 games in a row where he didn't have a carry over 10 plus yards, but also now no Pollard, and the fact that happened when he was not explosive 3 games in a 12-day span. That third game being that Saints game where he was clearly, that's the first time we've actually seen him hobble all throughout the game. But now, extended rest, so we got 10 days since the last time he played. Perhaps he is explosive. So trying to get that game, exposure towards that game in the same spot where everyone's going to roster Antonio Gibson instead, I think is pretty sneaky. And then overall, just mixing in the guys around the players we know are going to be rostered in the same salary. For instance, Mike Williams, we know is going to get everyone to roster him at $6K on DraftKings, but you can go like Amari Cooper at $5,900. Julio Jones, if you want to take that risk, is also $600 cheaper. We know everyone is playing cheap guys like Jalen Guyton or Josh Palmer, so instead play another cheap guy. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones is actually an awesome play today. Ravens defense horrific, allowing the most 20-plus yard passes through the air. That's why, like, Deontay Johnson last week was a good play as well. Baker, Donovan Peoples-Jones, like, this is the healthiest the Browns offense will be for the rest of the year, since they are 2 weeks removed now from their last game. They'll probably be limited after this, but it is a good spot and a sneaky total that could go over. And other than that, 49ers and Bengals also seems to go overlooked. No one wants to play Jamar Chase. We have reached that point like we did with T. Higgins, even though the rates are just fine. Chase is 0 for 7 and his targets 20-plus yards downfield over the last 6 games, but nonetheless, he's still getting them. So, yeah, I think stacking those games and hoping for a little bit of efficiency, since we know where the field is going, is sort of the theme for this week.
Awesome stuff. And yet Jamar Chase, he's going to catch the wide open touchdown this time. I think
it's a Chase week. I think we get back Chase this week.
That would be awesome. Kyle, what are some of the props we're looking at this week?
Yeah, so one that I'm the most excited for, because I'm also on it in DFS, Russell Wilson, at least as of yesterday, you could find 240.5 passing yards and 20.5 completions. Over on both of those. Don't worry, we have unders coming, because I think generally you should be looking towards unders. But for this one, Russell Wilson over, he was a minus 4.2 CPOE completion rate over expected, which is just completion rate multiplier with a factor of your depth of target, giving him credit for his deep throwing prowess. But he wasn't doing that. Minus 4.2 was like a terrible stretch for a career of Russell Wilson, where he was hyper efficient in terms of the CPOE metric. Returned to positive 14, a little over positive 14, in fact. Last week looked like typical Russell Wilson that we've seen for years and years. And the Houston defense, although they get run on a lot because teams that are bad get run on a lot, they're also one of the worst teams in terms of overall passing yards and yards per attempt allowed. So it looks like a good spot for Russell Wilson, even if he's not super volume laden. He doesn't have to be, because this is a really low number for him. And then the other one, Leonard Fournette, under 60.5, I believe the number is, rushing yards. Like, we have this idea of Leonard Fournette as a supreme fantasy producer. And while that is true, it doesn't really come because he's this fascinating rusher. He's 5 of 12 beating this line on the year. And I think he's only 1 of 5 in his previous 5 games. And this week he plays a team that is second in the NFL in EPA per play given up to opposing defenses, or they're stingiest, they're second stingiest. They're also good against the pass, but I think if you are the Tom Brady offense, you are looking at this team does two things well. Which one do we attack? It's obviously, as it has been all year, because they're number 2 in pass rate over expectation. They're passing the football this week. So under Leonard Fournette, over Russell Wilson.
Denny, we haven't heard you talk in a while, so I'm going to make sure you are still awake for Steven here. And these are two Denny-type players, big time. Ty Johnson apparently leading the Jets backfield this week, or Rex Burkhead season. David Johnson on the COVID-19 list this morning. It's all systems go for Rex Burkhead, correct?
It is, and we are going Burkhead here.
Oh man, are we really?
Yeah. He's getting enough of the passing game work, and the Texans have lean run heavy. Yeah, I think it's Burkhead. Am I alone here? Are you guys going Ty Johnson?
There's only 2 backs available, Burkhead and Royce Freeman. Seattle's defense, they're not that great, honestly. So I'm fine going Burkhead in this situation. It's just such a scary spot for the Jets, man. So it's
right
against the Saints, like depleted. Yeah. They're bereft of talent. The Jets are now, like, it's bad.
It's bad. It is weird though. They're playing the dual threat quarterback that's now basically a single threat with his mallet finger and no receivers. That is a strange game. The game is in New York. I was very tempted to put 1 on the Jets in my confidence points pool. I did not. I ended up picking the Saints and just proceeding as if they are the heavy favorite. I went like 7 or 8, but I sort of feel like the Elijah Moore thing is just such a killer. But before that, I thought the Jets might be a little livelier than people, because the Saints, they have the great defense, but they're just beaten down. They're just beaten down. They're kind of collapsing. So I was kind of on gangrene upset for today, but I did officially get off. I will say that for the record, I did get off that.
And also on FanDuel, everyone's playing Jeff Wilson 4,900 in tournaments, but we know he has to get a touchdown to get there. I'm just saying Burkhead's 300 more. I'm just saying.
I'm saying. Real quick, Prater or Bass was in the chat. You're going Prater. There. I think I answered it. I had to sneak it in. Go ahead.
Cut his mic. By the way, Royce Freeman is in several of my lineups. I wish I were kidding. But I am.
Excuse me?
I am not. Yeah, he's in several of my lineups today.
You are a fantasy football expert.
No, that was my joke.
Hold on. It's a 14-team league. So, yeah, I'm in a 14-team league. Stuff is going crazy.
Oh, yeah, those are brutal, man. Those are brutal. Yeah, I'm in a 14-team league with some folks on Twitter, and they're like, how are you not making the playoffs? It's a 14-team league. Do you know how hard those are? Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm starting several 2008 Detroit Lions in my 14-team league, and it's a rough scene. Caden here, Kyle, he needs one in PPR between Austin Eckler. We got studs here: Austin Eckler, Antonio Gibson, David Montgomery, Ezekiel Elliott. But I still think it's the stud amongst studs, correct?
Bench one, the stud amongst studs.
Oh, bench one. I thought he was saying
exactly.
Start one. I was like, wow. Yeah, bench one here. Sorry, that's a much tougher question.
David Montgomery, because they're all very similar plays outside of Eckler, who's like the stud among studs, and even Gibson's his role without Jeudy McKissick is incredible. So it's not those two very clearly. Ezekiel Elliott just plays on such a better offense than David Montgomery, who at this point could actually be a better real life football player than Zeke, but his offense is terrible. They're a sub 20 implied team total against a very difficult defense to pass against. They're not going to move the sticks. You have to play Zeke. And you're benching Montgomery, obviously.
I feel like it's been a while since I've thrown you this unnecessarily difficult one, and I feel like this is an unnecessarily difficult one. It's a tough decision. AJ Dillon, Godwin, or Julio Jones.
It obviously comes down to Dillon or Julio Jones. We're not worried about Igwebuike in this one, so I will say Dillon. Yeah. But personally, again, I think there's a lot more risk baked into Julio Jones than a lot of other people. So if you think it's a ceiling game, if you like Julio, be my guest. But I will take the floor and the split workload that Dillon had before the bye with Aaron Jones active. I will take that in a great spot against the Bears instead of Julio.
Daigle, I'll stick with you for this one. We're a guy we haven't talked about at all today, Jalen Guyton. He got added into the talk about 14 team league player, Jalen Guyton. No Keenan Allen today. Jalen Guyton, basically every time he catches the ball, it's 20 yards. But so eat your greens and Twitch. Who is he going to start amongst this, kind of bottom tier group of receivers? Jalen Guyton, Amon-Ra, or Traquan Smith?
Obviously an anomaly spot. Ramon St. Brown last week. Awesome to see them win, to see him make that tough catch. But overall, that was still his first touchdown of the year. We're not worried about St. Brown. I think it's Guyton. Do we trust? Again, that's not the word I'd used. I would play him. And I also think it's an interesting spot because last week for Justin Herbert to lead the league in depth of target, 10.7 yards downfield. So throwing beyond the chains every single throw. Whereas remember on early downs prior to this, that was the complaint with the offense that even though they're throwing on early downs, he had the shallowest depth of target in the first half on early downs. So they weren't aggressive at all. They changed that completely last week. So all the numbers, we've heard people cite Guyton's empty targets per route run rate of the past couple of seasons. I just wonder if that even matters if this offense stays aggressive and throwing on early downs, because Jalen Guyton is the deep guy. That's what he does. And so I do think Guyton's interesting. A lot of boom or bust, like MVS's previous role. Like he could get 4 targets and you got to hope he comes down with 1. But I do think he's in very interesting play this week.
I just don't know why the Chargers took the deep ball out of their offense so thoroughly, because last year, Justin Herbert, he hit deep balls consistently to Jalen Guyton and Tyron Johnson, who are like the definition of Jags, and he's still finding these guys like deep balls. I don't know why
it's the same thing. Everyone's arguing for Barkley because, everyone says, well, the Chargers run defense is bad. The Chargers have played the highest rate of stacked boxes since their bye. That's the change they made after their bye. And they've become one of the best rush defenses in the league since their bye, because now they just put 9 guys in the front 7 instead and stuff every running back. So it's a terrible spot for Barkley too, because the Chargers are still trying to make all these changes ahead of the playoffs while trying to sneak in.
Well, it seems like Brandon Staley. Well, Brandon Staley. Stop the run and run the ball is not looking too dumb now, is it, Brandon? And
one of 13
he's given up on
Coach of the Year nominees.
He's given up on analytics, Brandon Staley. You hate to see it.
Sure
Daigle, or not Daigle, Denny, Jack on YouTube. This is a tough one. Rashad Penny, I'm saying no. Probably Amir Abdullah, we're hoping has that third down role, or Jamar Jefferson.
Well, if we're being consistent here on the show, we're avoiding Lions players, and so I think you can cross off Jefferson. Abdullah's role is okay, but it's I don't.
Well, it's the thing, we don't quite know what it's going to be.
Right. I mean, yeah, and especially if game script is good for Carolina in this game, that's not good. That won't be good for Abdullah. So let's go. You know what? Let's go with Penny. The Texans are a great matchup for running backs, a massive run funnel of late, and we know Seattle wants to establish more than any team in the history of the league. So let's go with Penny here. With so many running back backfield injuries for Seattle as well, Penny and Collins should carry the load here.
I do. Abdullah's I feel like he's one of the X factor players this week, because he could have 2 touches. It could have been all just total dumb noise. It's just a 1-man backfield still. Or it could be surprisingly big at 10-12 after they fired the offensive coordinator because they wanted to run the ball more.
It's going to tell us a lot this week. If he gets 10 carries behind Hubbard's 20 because they want to be a run-heavy offense, it's going to be interesting. We know he has the passing role over Hubbard. That's not question, and that's what's going to come into play the next 3 games against the Bills, Saints, and Bucks. But this one, if he also gets carries, that's a pretty good RB3 the rest of the way. Also, it tells you how tough a week it is, because I've had Rich Reber try to sell me on Positional, and I had Evan Silva last night trying to sell me on Rashad Penny. That's what tells you what kind of dire straits we were in fantasy and DFS this week.
Yeah, leave it to the guy who's I'm starting Royce Freeman, to be Amir Abdullah is the X factor this week. We went from Deebo Samuel being a very potential X factor. That is 100% true. Deebo Samuel, an absolute killer. Amir Abdullah, another X factor type of player.
No, it's really, I feel like I'm playing myself saying it is a really, running back is just dire.
Yeah. Especially the way that everyone on the show is.
Now running back, you're basically it's like a world of Austin Walters.
Yeah.
It'd be really, really nice to see Amir Abdullah have an actual role for the Panthers. But yeah, again, I would not be surprised. It was a classic rug pull, and there is no role for Amir Abdullah. So
with the way we all build our rosters too, Amir Abdullah is on that, Deebo Samuel, love it. Amir Abdullah, I would love 8 carries, 4 or 5 catches, because we all build our rosters to get the big Deebo games and hopefully scrounge together some Abdullah games.
Kyle, we're going to get a quick answer from you for Raiden here on Twitch, and then we're going to get to Denny's adjusting the ranks. Who should Raiden 11 start?
James Robinson. All right, there you heard it here first, Raiden 11. And now we're about to hear it be shaken to our core, to the very soul of our being, as usual.
by Denny's Adjust the Ranks.
Hey everyone, this is Denny Carter with NBC Sports Edge with another edition of Adjust the Ranks. Today we're going to start with Denver Broncos kicker Brandon McManus, who recently made $430,000 by selling a non-fungible token, otherwise known as an NFT. This NFT was called a Bored Ape. Quote, "I'm apeless now. Not for long though." That's what McManus tweeted after selling his NFT for nearly $500,000. Let me tell you a little bit about his Bored Ape. Bored Ape 9867 is a 7-trait fur ape wearing a wool turtleneck and a bowler cap. This Bored Ape also has a bored cigarette mouth, a cross earring, and heart-shaped sunglasses. Extremely special. Based on these traits, Bored Ape 9867 was the 603rd rarest kind of NFT ape there is. We're adjusting down. I'm Brandon McManus here because honestly, he's not going to have much reason to want to play football anymore. He just made about 1/4 of what he makes playing for the Denver Broncos by selling a single NFT. So if McManus continues to buy and sell these NFTs, he's going to have no reason to play. We're adjusting down on Brandon McManus. We're going to continue today with Kansas City defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo, who told reporters this week that edge rusher Melvin Ingram is, quote, playing angry, inspiring his Chiefs teammates to also play angry in what has been a steadily improving KC defense in the second half of the season. The Chiefs, after all, have held opponents to a mere 39 points over their past 4 games. That's a lot of anger. We're adjusting up on the Kansas City defense. This is not the same friendly, good-natured, calm Kansas City defense we saw in the season's first half. Kansas City defenders are no longer inviting opponents to post-game picnics and tea and crumpets after the game like they were in September and October. No more of that. No more hospitality, only anger from the Chiefs. We're adjusting up on the Chiefs defense. Once again, this is Denny Carter with NBC Sports Edge, reminding you to adjust the ranks.
Denny, I'm surprised Spags isn't an NFT guy. I thought it was going to be about NFTs and Spags.
I was too. But seeing Brandon McManus make almost $500,000 on one NFT, it raises the question: why are these guys playing football?
Yeah, he's lost his motivation. And Denny, by the way, I'm going to make a reference the Zoomers won't really understand, but you were like a caller who called into the radio and kept the radio on. We got echo a few times during that video because you had the video just blaring out of your computer, apparently. Yeah. And everyone knows you turn down the radio when you call.
He was a water calling into the what?
Oh my gosh. I'm not triggered. And I'm also not going to be triggered by Denny talking about the kickers of the week. Denny, who are the kickers of the week?
Yes, kickers of the week. So we are back to our normal crop of kickers. We have Randy Bullock in another good spot. I'm sorry.
I feel like you say his name every week.
He keeps they keep playing terrible teams, so the game script should be good. We have Bullock. We have Brandon McManus, who is the cover guy on this week's kicker corner. McManus in a perfect spot.
Who you just said to never play again because he made $500,000 selling an NFT.
Right. Well, this is the part where my bit starts to bleed into actual real fantasy stuff, and I don't know what to say. But but you are playing McManus. I want to mention something real quick. Greg Zuerlein, there's a tweet from a Dallas beat writer that says Greg Zuerlein has a case of the hooks in pregame warmups against Washington. And this is absolutely panicking people across the fantasy world. They're asking me, do I bail on Zuerlein? No, you're fine. Zuerlein's in a good spot. We don't worry about pre-game shanks. Okay, let's stick with Greg the leg.
Stick with he could have just been working on something. So
right.
Daigle, here's a player we haven't heard a lot about today. Taysom Hill, the dual threat again, maybe without a finger, or Matthew Stafford for James.
I am still going Taysom Hill. Again, we talked about the Cardinals being a horrific spot for pass yards in particular. And Taysom Hill, we've seen that even if you go back to last year, his last 5 starts now, carry, a scramble, and 55 of 180 dropbacks, we know what he's going to do. He's going to run. And so I'm not worried about the passing touchdowns. Even last week, like I understand he had to get that 70-yard touchdown to become the QB6 overall in the week. And if you take that away, he's the QB 21, but still to get 100 yards, to take the rushing upside, that's what we're going for in the best possible spot against the Jets. I am still curious in DFS who's going to be more upset, the people who roster Taysom Hill and get sniped by Alvin Kamara, or the people who roster Alvin Kamara and get sniped by Taysom Hill. Either way, though, it's a terrific spot for both guys. So I like Taysom over Stafford.
It's close. It's gonna be talk about again, Kyle. Don't cancel me, but another like kind of like X factor player this week is Taysom Hill. Like if he can provide,
That's fine. The dude rushed for 100 some odd yards last week
without a finger. He can't throw. I typically like my quarterbacks to be able to throw at all. But so we're gonna see what happens with Taysom Hill against a really, really good spot for him in the New York Jets. And Kyle, we'll stick with you. Javonte Williams, a guy we haven't heard a lot about. Melvin Gordon is back for the Broncos, or James Robinson, maybe Mr. Squeaky Wheel in PPR.
Let's have some fun. Let's play Javonte. I think there's a very real risk that he just straight up comes back to the 60-40 style split with Melvin Gordon. I think that's honestly better than James Robinson getting the bulk of the work, even if you assume, which at this point doesn't feel like a given, that Robinson doesn't get benched in this game. Even if you assume Robinson is 3 downs, 80-90% of the snaps, Javonte Williams playing the 1B to Melvin Gordon's 1A against a terrible Detroit team that is run upon at the league's highest rate, I will take that. Javonte is just so incredibly efficient. He gets such a good matchup, whereas Robinson is more work, but the efficiency, you just can't project it to be there. So I'm going to take Javonte.
Denny, as punishment for your microphone feedback, I just unmuted you. We need you to answer a standard league question from Mark187 on YouTube.
This mic is from NBC. I just want to point that
out.
No,
the mic is fine. It's been whatever going on in your house.
It's the man behind the mic that's the problem.
It's right. It is. And it's also the children above the man. Need one in standard between Cortland Sutton. Okay. Standard. Oof. Oh, that's ugly, man. I mean, I was going to say Gage, but standard, you're going to get 7 catches for 60 yards for him. I guess Guyton with the hope of a long touchdown. I guess he's the upside play, but Gage would be the more traditional floor play.
Guyton's the upside play, man. We are living in a dark time. What is up with 4 buys in week 14? Like the week would be tough even without the buys, but the buys is just making this week like the worst week in the history of fantasy football, basically. Daigle, we know you're high on MVS this week. Are we high enough to play him over DJ Moore and kind of like this uncertain transitioning Panthers offense?
We're not that high yet. We are going DJ Moore, and we are sticking with that instead. I'm so curious about what the offense will be since Matt Rule decided and Jeff Nixon so much run heavy, run first, establish the run, yada yada. Every coaching change always comes with establish the run. But DJ Moore, the rates are still very Terry McLaurin like and playing every single snap, running around on every single snap. And so we will take that. Just in the fact also he still has led in targets. I understand the ceiling has been struggle there, but I will still take DJ Moore in a terrific spot against the Falcons.
We're just about out of time here, and we're almost out of, here we go. Kyle Dvorchak, Odell Beckham, returning Allen Robinson or Jamison Crowder. I think we probably know the answer here, but give us the answer and then talk just a little bit about Allen Robinson, who we basically just have totally forgotten about since he got injured.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine to totally forget about him. He plays in an offense that under Justin Fields, his top 200 passing yards just twice, and he was getting out-targeted by Darnell Mooney before going down with the injury. I wouldn't even pick him up. I don't think he's worth the roster spot. I'd play Crowder over him, but more importantly, I'd play Odell Beckham over both of them. Good offense. This offense is light years ahead of the Jets offense under Zach Wilson or any version we've really seen of either the Fields or Dalton Bears offense. So offense is better. The role, sure, maybe he ends up finishing in any given week third on his team in targets, but his targets are just infinitely more valuable than the targets of Robinson or Crowder.
Denny, we're going to end the show on this one. James Robinson or Kareem Hunt. It's actually a pretty fascinating one in PPR leagues. They're both RB2s this week. Talk the Browns might finally be going with more traditional 2 running back looks in their backfield, but is that enough to get Kareem Hunt in over James Robinson, who again we're hoping has a squeaky wheel game this week?
Daigle mentioned this a few minutes ago, but the Ravens are decimated on both sides of the ball by injuries. They're missing Jimmy Smith today, which is a little bit of a surprise after he got in a full practice on Friday. They're missing Marlon Humphrey, who is out for the year with that pec/shoulder injury. They're missing Patrick Ricard, which is a big blow to their running attack. I think that there's a decent chance for just a Browns blowout here against Baltimore, and that would position Kareem Hunt and obviously Nick Chubb for a lot of carries, a lot of touches. So I actually would go with Hunt over Robinson because I do think that the Browns are in an unbelievably good spot here.
They're in a good spot, but this is two teams that have been down bad, Denny. And it's going to be a really fascinating game between the Browns and Ravens today. It's going to be a fascinating Sunday. As usual, we're so thankful you started it here with us on a good football show, Fantasy Kickoff, served by Applebee's. Good luck in this final week of the regular season. Please come back and join us again next week at noon Eastern. For John, for Kyle, for Denny, I am Pat. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will catch you later.